Alright guys, welcome to another video from XF Motorsports. This is going to be the start of a fairly long project. We have two cars over here, a C63 and an SL, an R107 1980s SL. And by the end of this video series, only one of these cars is going to get to live, because we are going to be taking everything out of this car and putting it into this car. The engine, transmission, suspension, brakes. Basically the idea of this project is someone actually reached out to me for this project. He's actually from the UK. He wanted a car that looks like a nice classic car like this on the outside, but feels and drives just like a modern AMG like this car, like a C63. So yeah, our goal for this project is to combine these two cars together and use the best of both of them and end up with one car that is good for everything. So for this first part, we're going to be starting off with pulling this car apart, taking out the crappy diesel engine that's in it right now, and yeah, seeing how much work we have to do to restore the car fully, to use all the components from the C63 in it, and then go from there and start building it. So starting off by showing you guys both these cars before we start taking them apart. So this one is of course a C63, a fairly clean one actually. There's nothing wrong with it. This is not a salvaged car or something. It works, everything works on it. But we're going to be taking it apart and destroying it completely to use all the components in this car, which this one is far from perfect right now. Someone did an annoying diesel swap in it, so this one is, by the way, I'm not sure which one it is. It's an SL 380 SL. I believe these ones came with an inline 6 petrol, of course, originally, but of course this one has a swapped diesel inline 5 engine in it, and if you watched the previous videos you probably already know how much I hate diesel engines, so it's not going to be too painful taking this one apart. And it's also, yeah, the swap has been done in a really bad way. You can see that like 2x2 metal thing over there, which is the engine mount bracket, a whole bunch of weird vacuum lines going everywhere that make it look like a 1990s Nissan or something, and of course yeah, an old turbo that's leaking oil all over the place, a few other leaks underneath, two oil dipsticks weirdly, one of which has nothing in it and I'm not sure what it does, some annoying gear clamps and stuff holding everything together, and of course yeah, it's pretty much a mess. Wiring done by like, I don't know, like a home hardware specialist, but yeah, it's pretty bad. The condition on the outside though is quite a lot better, which is why I chose this car. Of course the outside too, the person wants it to be fully restored. He wants it to be painted. Well, we're first going to be stripping the whole car apart in this video, and after that we're going to be seeing what's the best place to go for the body work. Of course one thing we have to replace is that hood, because this hood has this annoying hood scope, because for the person that actually decided for some reason to put a diesel engine in it had to actually cut the hood to make it fit, and then to cover that hole he actually added that weird looking hood scope. So okay, so test driving the Mercedes SL, well, the first thing you realize when you get in the car is that the seat is like sitting on a freaking spring. Just look at how much this moves. This is like the opposite of a bucket seat. A bucket seat holds you in place. This one intentionally tries to throw you out of place. Like, that's how bad it is.
Feels like you're on like a waterbed.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, let's get over the seats and try to actually turn the car on, which makes that horrible noise when you turn it on, and then holy crap, every time you put it in reverse it's like someone punching you at the back. Like, so backing the SL out of the shop, let me be careful at this part. Okay.
Oh, what was that?
I have no idea. Apparently, yeah, when you turn the steering wheel too much, the steering lock is not, I don't know, something's not right with it, and the wheel, yeah, touches the bodywork or something and makes this really weird noise. Yeah, the whole car shakes like crazy, like it's about to fall off. Putting it in D, you get the same jerk, and then the car actually starts driving. And then you get to pressing the accelerator, which apparently does nothing at all. Here, like, this is me pressing the accelerator like 50%. This is me pressing it 100%. That's all. That's like pressing the accelerator flat out in this car. Literally goes nowhere at all. Usually you compare 0 to 100 times. With this car, you actually doubt if it will ever make it to 100 or not. It's literally that slow. Even worse is actually the transmission, because this one actually has a 3-speed transmission, and despite being 3-speed it still has trouble choosing which gear to be in. Like, you're driving along, it shifts into second, and now you put your foot hard down and it wouldn't shift back into first. Like, it's always in the wrong gear. It's not like it can even like make a mistake and be in the right gear at the right time. So it's horrible. It is literally the worst transmission you can possibly imagine any car to have. Then you get to turning the car and then you feel how bad the steering wheel is. So yeah, the steering wheel, if you turn it like literally half a rotation, look at what difference it makes in the way the car is going. Nothing. The car is still going in a straight line.
Oh, yeah.
It's all play.
Oh, yeah.
You have to turn the steering wheel like
Wow.
half a freaking rotation for the car to do anything. That's how horrible the steering wheel is. It's like driving a school bus or something with a broken steering column. It's like, yeah, it's the worst car you could possibly imagine to drive. And oh, well, the thing I haven't even gotten to is the brakes. So you would think the car is really slow when it accelerates, but then you actually get to stopping it, and look at this,
Oh.
foot hard down, and
Oh shit.
now we're finally at a
I hit
stop.
myself in the face with the camera.
The car has brakes that, like, you could literally take your foot out of the door and stop the car faster than pressing the brake pedal. That's how bad the brakes are. They literally don't work. It's like, yeah, it's the worst car ever. You cannot drive this car. It's that bad.
Everything's like delayed, I guess.
Yeah. Since Karen didn't really believe how bad this car was, I decided to let her have a go in it next. Yeah, even the gear shifter, look how much play it has in here. You pretty much have to guess what gear you're in.
Is my foot on it? Oh, shit.
Yeah. Don't worry, the accelerator does nothing in this car, so
I can't even.
you can't even overspeed in this car, even if you try.
Ooh! Shit! Oh my god, the
Yeah,
brakes
I
suck.
know, the brakes don't work.
Oh my god, stop! Very interesting experience, I must say.
Really? So you like this car?
No, it's just interesting.
What's interesting about it?
It's weird. It's a little weird.
Okay, so thankfully back in the shop with the SL, so we don't have
I
to
don't
drive
like
it
this
anymore.
car.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
I don't like it.
Now you get to the worst part of it all. You turn it off, and look at this. This is the funny part. Keys off. Well, keys out of the car, and the car is still running. It doesn't turn off. And then you have to pop the hood. Pop the hood, Karen. The lever over there. Open the hood, which is also broken on it. And then someone has left the stop button over here, which you press. And then you finally get rid of the freaking diesel. And by that time, it's already filled the shop with like all diesel smoke and that ugly smell. It is literally the worst car you can even imagine existing in the universe. So yeah, definitely don't like this at all. So now that the test drive with the SL is thankfully over, let's get to the proper car, the C63 AMG. And well, the reason why we chose this car for this swap or conversion is that the person actually wanted me to go with a much newer AMG, like an E63 or an S63, the twin turbo 4-liter AMGs, like the newest engine that they're using these days. But the reason I didn't want to go with those engines is because, well, first of all, the cost was really high compared to these ones. Even salvaged cars we were finding for more than a perfectly functional C63. And then the problem is that, well, there's nothing really too special about those engines. There's just more to go wrong in them. Well, I guess the fuel efficiency is better, but power hasn't gone up too much in those ones. Electronics and everything else is even more complex, so it's harder to actually do a swap. And also all the additional sensors and everything that you have to deal with. So a C63 in that regard was definitely a simpler car. Like, it doesn't have any active suspension, anything like that. And mostly because of this engine, because I think it's a really special engine, the M156, because it's the last AMG engine that was naturally aspirated. After that, it's all twin turbos and yeah, all those engines that they made after that. It's a fairly reliable engine too. Of course, it gave itself a bad name because of all the cam issues and cam adjusters and the older head bolts that used to fail. But apart from those issues, apart from the cams and everything, all the engine underneath that is really reliable, really good. Okay, now getting into test driving the proper car, the C63, and this is an amazing car, by the way. I really like this car, so I guess it's gonna be let me turn the radio off. It's gonna be a little painful taking this one apart because, well, first of all, it's a fully functional, really nice driving proper C63, and of course the reason we chose a car that like was all functional and everything rather than going with a salvaged car was because salvage cars, there's no way to test the engine and all the components and everything, and of course some of these components can be really expensive to fix or replace if they're not working properly. So of course the best bet was to go with the fully working car, because at least we know that all the stuff that we're going to be using from this car is nice, it is all working, and the final product is going to be a much more reliable, functional car this way, so it's going to give us less trouble down the road. Yeah, it just feels and drives amazing. Just listen to that sound. It has that classic AMG like nice sound. This one actually has, I believe it's a resonator delete or a secondary cat delete. I'm not sure what it is. I haven't lifted the car and looked at it yet, but there's definitely something done to the exhaust. So it sounds even nicer than it usually sounds. Pretty quick. Also, well, the C63s, they handle pretty well compared to other Mercedes just because they're lighter, and well, of course the stiffer suspension also helps. And yeah, what can I say? It's an amazing car overall. Feels like there's a night and day difference between these two cars. Like, you drive the SL and you get out of that and drive this car, you cannot even like think how you're going to convert that car into something like this. So it's definitely going to be a pretty big challenge, but of course I'm up for it, and
You can do it.
yeah, we're gonna have to see how much we have to move over, how much we have to do to make that car feel exactly like this one. Okay, so now that you guys have seen both these cars, it's time to start by taking them apart. First starting off with the SL, getting rid of this crappy diesel for once. And well, before I start taking everything apart, I just want to do one more thing. I want to weigh both these cars. Well, I have already weighed the C63, and believe it or not, that car actually weighs 1,800 kilograms. So crazy to see that even the lightest car in the AMG lineup actually weighs as much as a small elephant or something. So now I'm pretty curious to see how much this car weighs. I still haven't I've put the scales under it, but I haven't put it on the scales. So let's quickly lower it, check the weight of this one, and I'm pretty curious to see how much it weighs now and how much it will weigh after this whole conversion. So there we almost go. Yeah, perfect. It's on the wing scales now. 1,500 kilograms. Holy crap, that's pretty surprising. So even after the heavy diesel engine and everything, the car only weighs 1,500 kilograms. That's 300 kilograms lighter than the C63. And I bet, well, I'm not sure after this conversion if it's going to weigh more or less than this, because I know for a fact that this engine would probably be much heavier than the C63 engine because it's a cast iron diesel. It probably weighs a lot. I will find out how much it weighs when I take it out. It's also quite a lot front heavy actually. So you can see 29% at the front, 20% at the rear. So in terms of weight distribution, that is pretty much a 60-40 weight distribution. So that's pretty crazy. That's probably because of the heavy diesel engine. So let's see if we can improve on that too once we put that engine, the C63 engine, in this one. But also having a look underneath the SL, yeah, you see more of this Home Depot grade professional wiring harness work done underneath. And then yeah, there's also a Home Depot style under tray, some, I don't know what this is, a signboard or something, connected with self-tapping screws, which I'm pretty sure someone has done to stop the, or to hide the rear main seal leak over there, which yeah, it's dripping diesel oil all over the place, which leaves a mess wherever you park the car. So definitely getting rid of this diesel, and I'm definitely going to be happy to get rid of it because there is nothing good about this engine at all. Then you go back and then you see these brake lines which are sticking below pretty much everything at the bottom of the car. So if you happen to hit something at the bottom, your brakes are the first thing you're going to lose. Other than that, there's also some signs that the car might have been rusted previously in its life, because there's definitely quite a lot of like cutting done on it, and like this fiberglass thing underneath to, well, fix all that rust. And also in other places you can see some rust over here, but you can see that it's been fixed, like someone has painted over it and stuff. So I really hope that once we peel all this paint away, we scrape all this away, we don't see a whole bunch of rust underneath it. But so far, looking at everything, like well, just looking at it, there's not too much sign of like rust eating the car away. It seems pretty okay at this point, or pretty fixable at this point, at least I should say. But of course, next we have to get on to taking all of this out so we can actually see what the car is like underneath, and also measure things out to see how much we can move from the C63 over to this one. But first, of course, starting off with the engine, getting rid of the diesel, and then we'll get on to everything else. So for getting rid of the diesel, I started off by draining all the fluids. After that I got to the exhaust. Since this exhaust was something that we definitely weren't going to be using once we put the C63 engine in here, I just cut the exhaust off rather than dealing with the rusty exhaust bolts and everything. And after that, it was time to lower the car and remove a few more things from the top. Once everything was out of the way and the engine mounts were unbolted, it was finally time to pick up the diesel engine and try to take it out of the car. So after a bit of hard work, the diesel is finally out of the car, and to my surprise, the diesel engine did not weigh as heavy as I was expecting. It weighs 345 kilograms with the transmission, of course, which is actually quite a bit lighter than most other steel block engines that, they usually weigh quite a bit more than this. But I guess even back then, it's surprising to see that Mercedes were using pretty smart materials like I believe this is magnesium or aluminum for the upper oil pan, aluminum for the intake manifold, and aluminum for the valve covers, and even the hood of the car was actually made of aluminum. So pretty surprising to see that a 1980s car, and they were using all these lightweight materials that, well, GM cars at least are still not made to these standards today. So I believe the C63 engine would probably weigh exactly the same as what this engine and transmission weighs right now, so there's not going to be any weight saving there, but at least it's going to make a lot more power than this engine for the same weight. That engine makes close to 500 horsepower, whereas this one I believe was barely even making 100 horsepower right now. So that's all really good. Showing you guys the car after the engine and transmission is out of the way. Here's a look at everything that you weren't able to see before. More of that Home Depot style wiring harness over here. Yeah, it's quite a big mess right now, but of course the thing I have to do next is that I have to keep on removing more things. I need to get rid of that brake master cylinder. I need to get rid of the whole steering system, and basically, yeah, remove all this out of the way, because we're not going to be using most of this stuff. We're going to be carrying over all the new wiring harness from the C63, the engine wiring harness, the chassis wiring harness, and of course quite a few of the other systems too. So after that followed a few minutes of taking out everything and throwing it in the garbage, because we had to make space for all the new stuff that is going to be coming into this engine bay later on. Here's a look at the engine bay after all the useless stuff is removed from it. And well, the good thing to see so far is that all the structure of the car looks pretty good. There's a little bit of rust on it, like on a few of the places where, like, you can see a hole over here, but it's actually really minimal, only on a few places, which can definitely be repaired. So yeah, really good to see everything, that it's this clean so far. I guess most of the junk was added because of that diesel engine and yeah, all the weird wiring and everything done on it, which was making it look like a piece of junk, but actually underneath all that it's a pretty clean chassis at least. So yeah, that's all really good to see so far. I'm also going to be removing the brake master cylinder pretty soon, and all this power steering stuff. Well, the power steering stuff I might leave it in place for now, because I do have to push this car off the lift when I'll be bringing the C63 on, so I might leave that for later. But for now, what I do need to get to is disassembling the interior. I need to take the seats out. Well, I need to take the roof off first. This is actually a removable hardtop, because SLs, you might know, they were all convertibles. And then I need to take the entire dash out. I need to take all the carpets out, pretty much strip everything down to the bare metal, because, well, one reason is that we're probably not even going to be using this dash again, because we're doing a right-hand drive conversion on it, so that steering wheel is actually going to be mounted over here later on. And of course all the carpets need to come out anyways, because well, first of all, I need to have a look at the chassis if it's rust free and everything, and secondly, all the wiring harness from the C63 has to be put in, so we have to make space for that. And that wiring harness actually does need to go underneath the carpets and everything, so it's a pretty big wiring harness. You guys are going to see that in the next video probably, but for now, yeah, let's get to taking all this apart and see what we find out underneath. So for removing the hardtop, there's 2 locks at the front, 2 in the middle, and then 1 at the back. And after that, you can lift the whole hardtop off the car, but I highly recommend do this with 2 people. I guess I've lived the single SL years for long enough. I have an SL of my own, so I'm pretty used to doing this by myself, but it is a really heavy hardtop. Definitely don't take the chance doing it yourself. Once the hardtop was out of the way, it was time to get rid of the seats, all the carpets, and yeah, pretty much get rid of everything on the floor. Here's how far we've gotten with removing the interior. We've taken the seats out, the carpets out from underneath, and of course what we found out underneath was some electrical tape that I guess the previous owner left for us as a gift, and some repairs that someone has done under it. He's put a new floor in there, but they didn't drill any holes in here for the drains, which is why when I found this, it was actually like there was a pool of water sitting over here, which is why I guess this side is considerably more rusted than that side. That side did have holes at the bottom, that's why water doesn't pool up on that side. So we're probably going to drill holes over here as well. So yeah, that doesn't happen in the future. Other than that, a really nice stereo system at the back with a Punch 250 amplifier, probably from someone having his 1990s stereo addiction. Also, like there's a stereo that goes over here that is in here. Look at that. Who wouldn't have a stereo like that in the 1990s? The CD player, so that would have been pretty new back in the day. And going back to the soft top is actually in really good condition. This one someone would have probably like put it in really recently, and these are actually really difficult to replace, and also pretty difficult to get right, but this person has done a really good job on the soft top. I wouldn't pull it up right now, but yeah, everything on that part of the car at least is really good. So next we have to get to removing the dash, which well, it's not too difficult to remove on this car. It's an old school car, pretty simple things. You just pull out the ashtray. Here's a few screws underneath, then this panel comes out, and a few more panels underneath that are also, all the screws are pretty much like visible right there, and then yeah, the whole dash comes out. So yeah, let's get to that and then find out what we find underneath. Oh, it is on, okay, perfect. Why do you always want to keep that?
Like cream cheese.
It's just why do Once the dash was out of the way, there was quite a lot of figuring out to do with the wires to get rid of all the wires that we didn't need, but definitely keep the wires that we were still going to be using, like for example the wires going back to the tail lights, and yeah, a few of the other systems that we're still going to be keeping, like the climate control and stuff. So after quite a bit of work, here's how far we've gotten with the SL after like removing the dash and everything. So one thing I'm really impressed at is the quality of everything. It is a hell of a lot better than their newer cars, that I can say. Well, one thing bad about it is that everything is extremely complex, all the vacuum lines and like the wiring harness, because there was no serial communication CAN bus or anything back then. So literally every single thing, like look at this, there's just this like simple switch. All that it does is control the wipers and indicators, and look at how many wires are coming out of this massive plug just for this little switch. Whereas in these cars, in newer cars, there would only be 4 wires coming out, which is 2 for power, 2 for CAN bus, and like that controls literally everything. So yeah, there's definitely some good things, some bad things about it, but the good things about it are that the quality is amazing. Like look at all these vacuum like actuators that are like from the 1980s, and they're still intact. All the rubbers are intact, they haven't cracked. All the diaphragms are actually intact, and it's amazing to see that like all this is still like can get working. It wasn't working on this car because, well, I'm not sure if it was something related to the swap or if someone didn't connect anything properly, but yeah, the climate control would do nothing at all. There was no heating, there was no air conditioning. The air conditioner, well, the system wasn't even connected. There was nothing connected to the lines. But I'm really hoping that the evaporator and the heater core inside it doesn't have any leaks, so we can use the same climate control system, because the climate control system from the C63 wouldn't even fit this car because it's much bigger. It's it wouldn't even fit behind the dash. That's this small. This is all the wiper mechanism actually back here that controls the windshield wipers. These two things over here are actually the thing that opens and closes your little fresh air thing, and then if you open the fresh air thing, the car actually sucks air from these vents over here, goes into the blower that is over there, and then comes into the climate control system from here. This thing over here, which is also controlled pneumatically, is for your 3 vents that went over here, and then these ones are for the defogger for the windshield. So pretty cool how they were controlling everything using pneumatics and like solenoids and everything. We still haven't removed the steering column right now, even though it's pretty easy to remove at this point. There's just one bolt holding it in. We've left it in place so that we can actually turn the car, move it around right now, because we will need to move it around. But I'm also showing you guys everything in the engine bay. So yeah, the brake booster is out now. We've still left the brake lines in place because that's something I'll deal with later, moving the brake lines, because we actually have to do a right-hand drive conversion on it. That's the another thing that we have to do. So bringing everything to this side, I guess that's going to be the bigger challenge, because you can see that the whole firewall is actually designed differently from that side than on this side. There's physically more space over there for fitting everything for the brake pedal and all that stuff. When we bring all that stuff over here, I'm not sure how easily it's going to fit because it's much tighter over here. So we're definitely going to have to do quite a lot of modifying on the car to make all that work. And of course I'll have to figure out what modifications I'll have to do on the subframe and everything to make this work to fit the engine and transmission from the C63. Also, talking about the suspension, first I was thinking of getting rid of the suspension completely because I thought it would be an old suspension, it would all be broken and stuff, but this, the front suspension at least on this car is actually pretty good. They have a completely separately mounted subframe that has 4 rubbers on the side that both the lower control arm and upper control arm mount to, and the spring is actually mounted on the same thing, and even the engine mounts are mounted on the same subframe. So that's amazing for noise isolation, because like all the vibrations don't come into the chassis. Whereas the C63 suspension, which you guys are, I guess, gonna see better in the next video, that's just a simple McPherson strut suspension with only the lower control arm mounted on a separate subframe, and then of course the coilovers and the strut just bolts straight into the chassis. So this is a pretty good suspension, but of course the geometry, the way it's set up, is really crappy. It pretty much has like no caster at all, because of which when you drive the car it just wanders all over the place. But since it is a double wishbone suspension, it's not going to be too hard changing the geometry. There's just going to be quite a lot of cutting and welding I'll have to do to change it around to kind of match the same geometry that the C63 had, so that the steering wheel and everything feels like the C63, and I'll try to move the same steering rack from that car into this one. But before I get to modifying anything on the car, what I will be doing is that I'll actually measure all this suspension out, draw it up in CAD, and actually see how this was moving, actually see what chassis geometry they were going with, what roll center and pitch center they had, what anti-dive geometry they had, and all that. And then actually work from there, find out what they're doing in the C63, and try to match all that in this car, which then hopefully should lead to a really similar feeling in this car than how the C63 suspension feels like. So it's quite a bit of work. It's going to take a while doing all that, but yeah, you guys are definitely going to see the progress on it, and hopefully see this car come back together in a much better form than it is right now. Here's a look at all the stuff that came out of the car. So it's an awful lot of stuff, and I guess a few of these things I am going to be listing on sale, like this diesel engine and transmission. If someone wants to buy it, definitely let me know. You can definitely buy it. It will help me clear up the shop quicker. And some other things like the seats too, I guess I'm going to be listing for sale, trying to get rid of them as quickly as possible. Even the instrument cluster, actually, we don't really need all this stuff. The old audio equipment, a punch 250, whatever this amplifier is, most of this I'll try to sell as quickly as possible so I can make some space to bring this car on the lift next. And the next video is pretty much going to be about tearing this car down, taking the engine and transmission out of it, and all the dash, all the wiring harness, pretty much basically everything we've done on this car. Well, even more than this, we're going to be disassembling, because we have to take the entire wiring harness out of this car, all the electrical modules, all of the stuff that is in this car. You guys are going to see it in the next video. It's a lot of work, actually. It's much more work than we did on this one. And then we're going to try to move it over to this car and to try to make everything work exactly like it does in the C63. So you guys are going to get to see how much Mercedes has improved or not improved over the last 30 years or so. And well, one thing is that I guess the quality of the plastics and everything, one thing I was really impressed with is that nothing broke while removing on this car. Everything just came off easily, all the connectors, everything was such good quality that it works still. Whereas in this car, what I'll show you I guess in the next video, there's still like rubbers and plastics and stuff that are already falling apart on the engine, even though the car is only 10 years old. So it's pretty crazy to see that their newer cars yeah, don't even last 10 years, whereas these older cars lasted so much longer. So yeah, this is going to be everything for this video. Definitely stay tuned for the next video, because that's when, yeah, we'll get to take this car apart and see what condition we find everything in, and really get to see how much we can fit into this car and how easy or difficult it turns out. So yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.